All right, good morning, everybody. We are getting into our lecture notes on the cell cycle and mitosis, and we are going to be looking at what our body does in order to make new cells in different scenarios. Some of the reasons we might need new cells. I asked you guys some questions last week was if anybody got injured over break, maybe you cut yourself, you fell down and hurt yourself, you were like my kids and you were on our trampoline and you just got crunched, what your body does to help you to heal those injuries or illnesses or whatever. And in order to heal those things, we have to take a look at how cells replicate. So how we're going to make new cells to repair damaged or dead cells. So we're going to take a look at the cell cycle and mitosis. In your notes, if it's highlighted in yellow, like right here, okay, you need to write that down or type that out in your notes, okay? If it's in yellow, you need it. If it is in turquoise, let me see if I can find somewhere that's turquoise. If it's in turquoise, it means I want you to take a snippet of the picture that you see on that slide. And I will remind you in class how to take a snippet. So we will go over that together in class next week on Monday. And so that you can insert that picture, okay? So again, if it's in yellow, you need it for your notes. Okay, so the cell cycle and mitosis notes, we're going to get started on those. Basically, in eukaryotic cells, remember, eukaryotic, you do have membrane-bound organelles, right? So in eukaryotic cells that have organelles, you have these things called somatic cells, and those are body cells. So cells that make up your organs and tissues, right? Skin tissue, stomach tissue, liver tissue. So those is one type of cell. The other type of cell you have is a sex cell, which is the only cells that are not somatic or not body cells, and those are the gamete cells, your sperm and egg cells. All the rest of your cells are somatic cells or body cells, okay? And in those cells, there has to be a way to make new ones, right? So we're going to do this whole thing on cell division, the cell cycle, and mitosis. So in cell division in eukaryotes, right, you get two major stages. So you've got two main pieces of cell division. The first stage is mitosis. So that is the division of the nucleus. So over here, I have a little picture of a nucleus, right, in the cell. So you got the whole cell, and then the nucleus here, and then this right here, the nucleus. This is just a nucleus, right? So in the nucleus, you have the nucleolus, you got some chromatin hanging out, you've got the nuclear membrane, and it shows you that it's the nucleus. So in the first stage of mitosis, you're dividing the nucleus, okay? So that's the first stage. Second stage, after you have replicated and divided that nucleus to make a new cell, you're then going to divide the cytoplasm. Kind of conveniently, the division of the cytoplasm is called cytokinesis. So cytoplasm and cytokinesis go together, right? Cytokinesis is the division of the cytoplasm, okay? So the first thing we're going to do in that first stage is replicate and then separate and make two, or you're going to end up with two nuclei, right? So the first stage, division of the nucleus. And then the second stage, after you've done that, you're going to divide the cytoplasm in cytokinesis. So the cell cycle is a series of events that cells go through as they grow and divide, and we're going to take a really closer look at what the cycle actually looks like. And then interphase is a period of growth that happens between cell divisions. So before a cell can divide, it has to grow. Okay, when a cell is really teeny tiny and it's new, like it's just been made, it's not going to divide right away. It has to grow and get big enough to where it's going to divide. And the cell spends most of its life in interphase, in this period of growth. So interphase is a period of growth. During the cell cycle, you have a couple of things that happens. Number one, the cell grows larger, right? It gets ready for division. And then once it divides, it's going to split into two daughter cells, which are identical to each other. And then the cycle will start again for those individual cells, okay? So you got four phases, okay? And in here I say take a snippet of this picture. So right now, go ahead and pause your lecture and go ahead and take a snippet of this cell cycle picture and then insert it into your notes because you're going to want it there. So pause now and do that. And then after that, you're going to then put these 4 phases. So you have G1, which is the first gap phase, the S phase, G2, the second gap phase, and then the M phase. And if you're looking at this here, you can see G1, this is where the cell is growing, okay? So in G1, the cycle begins here, and the cell is going to grow in G1. So you're going clockwise. It's kind of easy because that's how we generally do life, right? The cell is going to start here, and it's going to start growing. Once it hits the S phase, okay, you're going to replicate the DNA during the S phase. That's what these things are saying here, right? So you're going to get cell growth, and then you hit the S phase, and you are going to now replicate your DNA. So there's a checkpoint, okay, right here between cell growth and the replication of DNA. The cell says, yes, I have gotten big enough, okay? Once the cell has grown large enough, it's going to hit that checkpoint and say, okay, I'm big enough now, I'm going to divide. So in order to divide, I have to make a copy of my DNA so that I have 2 copies so that I can make 2 cells. So DNA is replicated here. And then in G2, you get this second gap phase. You're getting ready to divide. You're duplicating organelles and that kind of stuff so that you've got a second set of organelles. And then the M phase, you have cell division or mitosis. Okay, during G1, again, we're going to go now in separate stages. So that was the picture of the stages and listing the 4 stages. Now you're going to want to say each stage and give a description, okay? So during G1, I said it before, the cell gets bigger, and then it synthesizes new proteins and organelles. It's going to develop more. So just think of G1 is like when you're a baby or a child, you're growing, you're adding cells, you're getting bigger, and all that kind of stuff, okay? Now, during the next phase, the S phase, you're going to replicate your DNA, okay? Chromosomes are replicated and DNA synthesis takes place, okay? So those 2 things are important. You have your chromosomes in your nucleus, you're going to replicate those and synthesize your DNA. And once it's going into the S phase, it's going to complete the rest of the cycle. It won't stop. The next phase, the G2 phase, is second gap phase. That's where organelles and the molecules that you need to divide are produced there, okay? So that's when you're making more organelles by replicating them and other molecules that you need. And once G2 is done, then the cell is ready to go into the M phase or mitosis. All right, now is a time where I want you to pause and take a snippet. This is a super, super important graphic, so I want you to go ahead and take a snippet of this. This also exists in your textbook. But I want you to take a snippet of this and insert it into your notes as the cell cycle. Okay, again, you've got this G1 phase. The cell is going to grow. Once it's gotten big enough, it hits that checkpoint. It says, now I'm big enough. I am going to now replicate my DNA and my chromosomes. Okay, I'm going to make a second copy. Whoopsies. Okay, make that second copy. Then it's going to hit G2. It's going to get ready for mitosis, replicate some more organelles. Make sure it has all the stuff that it needs, and then it's going to go into mitosis right here, which is this M phase, okay? And I think, okay, this M phase, you've got the different phases, and we'll talk about those in a second. That is where you replicate and divide the nucleus, okay? So mitosis, this little piece here, you're dividing the nucleus, and then cytokinesis, you're dividing the cytoplasm. All right, why does interphase happen? You need to write that question down. You need it because you have to get the cell to be bigger. It has to add organelles and DNA, right? So if you don't grow larger and start replicating organelles, you won't have enough organelles for when it needs to split into 2, right? So you need enough organelles and DNA to make 2 cells, okay? So during interphase, you're making all this stuff, and this because you're making all this stuff, the cell has to get bigger in order to accommodate all of those things, okay? DNA is, you got it turning with chromatin, so long thin strands made up of DNA and protein. So you've got that chromatin in the nucleus. That's not as important. We'll go into more detail with that later, but you do need to know chromosomes. That's where your genetic information is passed from one generation to the next. So you have half from your mom and half from your dad, and before the cell can divide, each chromosome is copied so that that cell that is going to be the duplicate has the exact same chromosomes so that you're able to then have that cell work for you. If it didn't have all the same stuff, cell wouldn't work, okay? So take a snippet and insert this picture. So here's a time to pause and take a snippet of this picture. This just shows you some graphic representations of chromosomes, which is the chromatin like packed into a little tiny package. Okay, so you've got kind of like this X shape right here, and in the middle you have the centromere. That's the little place where they meet, okay, together, each sister chromatid. So one side is one chromatid and one side is another chromatid. It's not top and bottom. It's like left side and right side. Those chromatids get stuck together like this. Okay, so this side is one chromatid, this side is another chromatid, and where they touch in the middle is that centromere. This is just another picture. Go ahead and pause and insert this picture also. It gives you a good representation. Here's one blue chromatid and the red chromatid over on the other side, and then the centromere in the middle. This is a really good picture, so go ahead and pause, take a snippet, and insert into your notes. All right, chromosomes, a little bit of information about them. Each chromosome has two sister chromatids. That's the one on the left and the one on the right. And each pair is attached at an area called the centromere. So we've kind of said that multiple times. So just make sure that you have that description and that you know what that looks like. All right, once we get through the stages of the cell cycle and we get to the M phase at the end, that's mitosis, right? So this is where you actually now separate the two cells. It happens in your body cells. Remember, those are called somatic cells, and you get two identical daughter cells. They're exact copies of each other, right? So the copy is exactly like the original. And this little mnemonic here, PMAT, is a really good way to remember the order of the phases. So you do need to know the order of the phases. Prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. That's the order they go in. And you can use PMAT to remember that. So that's a good mnemonic to remember. All right, right now this is the stages of mitosis. This is actually PMAT in a stage. So go ahead and take a snippet. Go ahead and pause right now. Take a snippet, put that into your notes. And you can just title that mitosis. And this is just like an overview. And then we're going to go each stage by stage. Okay, so go ahead and take, again, you're going to pause. Go ahead and title it prophase, and then pause, take a snippet of this picture right here. And then you're going to give the description. So prophase is the first and longest phase of mitosis. It's where the cell spends the most time in the M phase itself. And what happens is you get these centrioles, which are organelles that help to pull the cell apart. So the centrioles get away from each other, and they're going to go to opposite sides of the nucleus. So if you're looking at a picture, you would look for something where you still have kind of like a nucleus-looking situation, and then the centrioles are on opposite sides. Okay, this is just a overview, right? Centrioles lie in a region called the centrosome. And the centrosome organizes the spindle, which you don't really need to know. Mostly you just need to know in prophase, it's the first and longest phase, and then that's where the centrioles go to opposite sides of the cell, because that's what's going to pull the two cells apart. Okay, this is a summary of prophase. It's the first phase of mitosis. It's the longest. You get chromosomes there. You can start to see them. The centrioles, those two organelles right here and here, separate. Okay, and move to opposite poles or opposite ends of the cell. And then you get these spindle fibers. It kind of looks like, you know, those head scratchers that you can use? It's kind of what it looks like. And then the membrane around the nucleus starts to disappear. Okay, you're going to type metaphase for the title of the next stage, and then take a snippet of this and insert it from metaphase. And metaphase is the second phase of mitosis. The chromosomes basically line up in the middle. So if you were to look in a microscope and say, I ask you like, hey, what phase is this in? If they're lined up along the middle like that, that is metaphase. And then you get the head scratchers coming down from the top and coming up from the bottom, right? The microtubules, the head scratchers, they're going to attach to the middles, those centromeres, where the chromosomes attach to each other here, the sister chromatids. And the last thing you want to know is that the metaphase is the shortest phase out of the mitosis phases. All right, go ahead and title the next little section of your notes anaphase, and then take a snippet of this and insert it into your notes by that. And so pause now, snippet, insert. Anaphase is the third phase of mitosis. That's where you basically now get the sister chromatids being pulled apart. into individual chromosomes. Okay, so they're going to continue to move until they separate it into 2 groups. So now you're starting to get all that duplicated stuff is going to be moving apart so that we can now make it into 2 cells. So the summary of anaphase, you get those centromeres that split and the chromatids separate and they move to opposite poles because they're getting ready to split that cell into 2. Last phase of mitosis is telophase. So go ahead and title telophase and then pause and take a snippet of this picture of telophase and insert it into your notes. And telophase is the 4th and last phase of mitosis, right? So basically the chromosomes are going to get together at either end. So you can see there's one here and one here. Okay, and then they lose their distinct shape. They're going to unravel back into chromatin. And then the nuclear envelope comes. So you start to get the look of like 2 cells in telophase. So if you were to look at it under a microscope, if you saw a cell that looked like it was 2 stuck together, that's going to be showing you telophase. So you get your own separate nuclear envelope and your own separate chromosomes on both sides. And you're going to get that all set up back together. Okay, and then this is just a summary. Basically, you get the chromosomes on either side. You go back to chromatin, you get a nuclear envelope, your spindle fibers go away, and then you're going to try to get 2 cells right there. The last portion of the cell cycle is cytokinesis. That's where you're going to now separate. So go ahead and put cytokinesis and then pause and take a snippet of this picture right here now that we have 2 individual cells. And then for the description, during cytokinesis, right, that's cytokinesis, cytoplasm, you're going to now separate those 2 cells and separate the cytoplasm in half. And so each daughter cell now, so each of these 2 cells, has an identical set of chromosomes because we went through and we duplicated the DNA in the chromosomes, and then we split them in half and gave each cell its own necessary amount of chromosomes. So now those cells are ready to work for you. So if in the recent memory or something like that, you have gotten a cut or bumped your knee and gotten a bruise or something maybe more serious, or you've gotten a cold or an infection of some kind, your body has been going through this the whole time to help you to heal, right? You may have damaged cells or cells that have been eradicated, and now your body, right, your body cells are going through the cell cycle, right? And they then are growing cells, and then they are going through and replicating the DNA in the chromosomes and making more organelles and then splitting so that it can help you to get better. So we'll be keeping to this unit and taking a closer look at some of the healing powers of your body, and we'll get more to that next time. All right, see you guys later. Bye.